Rain hammered against the windshield like thousands of tiny fists as Zayden Karoma's black Maybach rolled to a smooth stop at the intersection. His driver was about to accelerate again when a shadow stumbled into the headlights, then collapsed flat on the soaked pavement. The world seemed to hold its breath. Zayden's chest tightened as the figure, a young, frail girl, lay motionless, rainwater washing over her like she was fading into the night itself. His security rushed forward, ready to drag her aside, but then something slid out of her torn bag and landed at Zayden's feet. A photograph. A photograph of him, his younger self, standing beside a woman he had spent years trying to forget. For the first time in a long time, Zayden felt the ground shift beneath him. What was a poor girl doing with a picture tied to the darkest corner of his past? And why did she look like she'd crossed the world just to reach him? Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. Ask there. And if you enjoy emotional African folktale dramas like this, feel free to subscribe. Your support means everything. The moment Zayden saw the photograph, something ancient and unwelcome stirred inside him like a locked door rattling under a sudden wind. His security team bent down to lift the unconscious girl, but he stopped them with a sharp wave of his hand. Careful. Don't touch her like that, he said, voice low but commanding. The rain drenched his tailored suit instantly as he stepped out of the car. He never cared. His eyes were fixed on the girl's fragile body, her thin arms, her shaking breaths, the mud clinging to her clothes. She looked like she hadn't eaten properly in days. Her bag, a faded brown thing with broken straps, lay spilled open in the puddles. Zayden crouched down, ignoring the cold water soaking through his trousers. His gaze returned to the photograph. The edges were worn as if handled thousands of times. And there he was himself, maybe 17 or 18, standing beside the woman who once shaped his whole world before everything collapsed. Why did this stranger have it? His heartbeat thudded uncomfortably as he scanned the rest of her belongings. Another item lay half submerged in the water, a thin silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a crescent moon. His breath caught. Impossible. He reached for it carefully, his fingers trembling in a way they hadn't trembled since childhood. This necklace, he knew it. He recognized the delicate inscriptions on the back, invisible unless held close. It belonged to his mother, a piece presumed stolen or lost over 20 years ago. The rain blurred his vision for a second, or maybe it was something else, something dangerously close to emotion. Behind him, his head of security, Kovan, spoke cautiously. "Sir, we should get her off the road. A crowd is forming." Zayden looked up. He hadn't noticed people gathering, drivers honking impatiently, pedestrians staring, phones slowly lifting. A billionaire kneeling beside a collapsed girl was the kind of spectacle tabloids lived for. "Get the car ready," Zayden said sharply. "We're taking her with us." Kovan hesitated. "Sir, she's a stranger. She could be dangerous." Zayden shot him a cold glare. "She's unconscious, not armed." "Move." Within seconds, Kovan obeyed, and the team lifted the girl gently this time, placing her into the back seat of the Maybach. Zayden slid in beside her, his jaw set. He held the photograph in one hand, the necklace in the other, feeling the weight of questions he hadn't prepared to face. As the car accelerated into the rain-soaked night, he studied her face more closely. Soft features, sunken cheeks, skin dulled from exhaustion, but still carrying traces of youthful delicacy. Strands of wet black hair plastered across her forehead. She looked impossibly young. Too young to be carrying secrets from a past older than she was. The driver glanced at Zayden through the mirror. "Where to, Sir Mansion?" "No," Zayden said instantly. "The private ward at Genesis Hospital. And call ahead. Tell them I'm arriving with a priority patient." The driver nodded, switching lanes with practiced ease. The ride was silent except for the rhythmic patter of rain. Zayden's thoughts were not. His mother's necklace. His old photograph. What was the connection? He tried to recall the last time he'd seen that necklace. He'd been 13, clinging to his mother's arm as she argued with his father late into the night. The next morning, the necklace was gone, and so was the warmth in their home. Chaos followed. Accusations. Broken trust. Eventually, his mother left the mansion forever. He never saw her again. A faint sound pulled him back to the present. The girl whimpered in her sleep. Pain, fear, or both. Her fingers twitched, as if reaching for something that was no longer there. Zayden watched her silently. Something in him tightened, uncomfortably human. 20 minutes later, the Maybach slid into the underground entrance of Genesis Hospital. Medical staff rushed forward before the car even stopped. Zayden exited first. "She collapsed on the road," he said. Malnourished, dehydrated, possibly injured. Treat her immediately. Spare no cost. Doctors nodded rapidly. No one dared question the Karoma heir. As they lifted her onto a stretcher, her hand fell sideways, and Zayden instinctively reached out, catching it. Her skin was cold, far too cold for comfort. For a moment he held on longer than he intended. He told himself it was only to prevent her hand from hitting the floor. But deep inside, he knew the truth felt different. The next hour passed in a blur of medical procedures and silent pacing. Zayden waited outside the private ward, leaning against the wall, arms folded tightly. Coven stood a few steps away, shifting nervously. Sir Coven finally said, "Should I call Miss Mara? She'll want to know why your schedule." No, Zayden cut in. "Don't call her. Not yet." Coven nodded, though his confusion was obvious. A doctor in a white coat emerged. "Mr. Karoma," he began respectfully, "the girl is stable. Severe exhaustion, low blood sugar, mild hypothermia, but no major internal injuries. She should wake soon." Zayden exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "May I see her?" "Of course, sir." The doctor guided him to the room. Soft, warm light filled the space, nothing like the harsh fluorescent glow of typical hospitals. The girl lay on crisp white sheets, an IV drip beside her. Someone had cleaned her up. Her face looked calmer, almost peaceful. Zayden approached slowly, pulled a chair beside the bed, and sat. He placed the photograph on the bedside table. Then the necklace. Both items gleamed faintly under the warm lamplight, silent, accusing. He studied her again. "Who are you? Why do you have pieces of my life? And what brought you to my car tonight?" Suddenly her eyelids twitched. Her fingers curled. A soft groan escaped her lips. Zayden leaned forward instinctively. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, startled, terrified. The first thing she saw was the ceiling. The second thing she saw was him. She jerked upright, instinctively winced from the sudden pain, and pressed herself against the headboard like a trapped bird. Where am I?" she whispered, voice cracking. "Genesis Hospital," Zayden replied calmly. "You collapsed in front of my vehicle. I brought you here." Her breathing quickened, her gaze darting to the table. The moment she saw the photograph and necklace, she froze entirely, as if her heart stopped. "No," she breathed, voice trembling. Please don't take those. They're all I have." Her desperation hit him like a slap. He lifted one hand gently. "I'm not taking anything, but I want to know why you have them." She swallowed, hard, eyes glistening. I didn't mean for you to see them," she whispered. "I was going to find someone important." "Who?" he pressed. She hesitated, trembling, then whispered, "A man named Zayden Karoma." Silence, cold, heavy, crushing. Zayden felt the floor tilt under him. She didn't know who he was. He studied her face again, fearful, sincere, exhausted beyond measure. "What business do you have with this, Zayden?" he asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Tears welled in her eyes. "My mother's last words," she said, voice shaking, were, "Find him. He knows the truth about who you really are." Zayden's pulse thundered in his ears. He stood abruptly, the room suddenly too small, the walls closing in. Her eyes widened as if she'd said something forbidden. Zayden turned away, gripping the window frame, breathing hard. The truth about who she is. His mind spiraled, memories, fragments, his mother's disappearance, the missing necklace, the photograph taken just weeks before his life fell apart. He turned back slowly, his expression unreadable. But inside, a storm was beginning. The silence stretched across the hospital room like a suffocating veil thick enough to strangle breath. Leora sat rigidly on the bed, her fingers twisting into the blanket, as if she needed something, anything to anchor her. Zayden stood by the window with his back turned, shoulders tight, jaw clenched hard enough to crack. The air between them was charged, trembling with the weight of a truth neither fully understood. Finally he spoke, voice low but edged with steel. "What exactly did your mother tell you about this man?" Leora swallowed, her throat bobbing. Only that he was the key, that he was the last person who knew the truth about my birth. She said I needed to find him no matter what, and then she handed me the necklace and the photo. Her voice wavered. She died that night. The memory hit her like a blade. Her eyes dropped, blinking fast to keep tears from spilling. She had cried enough for 10 lifetimes already. Zayden turned slowly. His eyes were shadowed, unreadable, but something flickered: guilt. Recognition, fear, Leora couldn't tell. She barely understood why this rich, powerful man seemed so deeply shaken by objects she'd carried her entire life. He stepped closer, his expensive shoes soundless against the polished floor. "Your mother?" Did she ever mention knowing the Karoma family? Leora shook her head. She only said the name once, Zayden Karoma. And she said he carried the last thread to unravel everything. Zayden's pulse pounded painfully. Thread, unravel. Words that tugged at memories he had buried so deep he thought they'd become dust. He forced himself to remain composed. How long have you been searching for him? Leora exhaled shakily. 2 months. I traveled from town to town asking questions, following rumors. I barely slept. I barely ate. I sold everything we owned, what little we had left after the funeral. Her hands trembled. I thought, when I finally reached the capital, things would get easier. But it only got harder. A soft bitterness crept into her voice. The city doesn't care about girls like me. Zayden felt an unexpected pang, sharp and unwelcome. He had lived his whole life surrounded by privilege, but even he could recognize truth when he heard it. What happened tonight? He asked. Leora looked down at her hands. I hadn't eaten since yesterday, my vision blurred. I just needed to sit for a moment, but the rain came so fast, and then everything went dark. Her voice trembled again. I didn't know I collapsed in front of your car. I'm sorry. Zayden blinked, momentarily stunned. Why are you apologizing? I caused trouble, she whispered. For someone like you. The words landed with a strange weight. Someone like me, someone untouchable. Someone above her. He felt a faint, unwelcome ache at that thought. Before he could respond, a nurse entered to check Leora's vitals. She greeted Zayden respectfully, then gently instructed Leora to lie back. Leora obeyed, though her eyes kept flicking nervously toward the necklace and photograph lying on the bedside table. Zayden watched her closely. The fragile way she held her breath whenever the nurse stepped too close to her belongings. The fear behind her eyes, the instinct to protect what little she had left. These things weren't just items. They were pieces of her identity, the only memories of a life that had been stripped bare. Once the nurse left, Zayden sat slowly in the chair beside her bed. I need to understand everything. Start from the beginning. Leora hesitated but nodded. My mother was a quiet woman, she began softly. She never spoke much about her past. It was just the two of us. We lived in a small village on the outskirts of Salima. I never knew my father. Whenever I asked, she said he wasn't important, that the past was too heavy to carry. Her voice turned delicate, almost fragile, but when she got sick, everything changed. She became terrified. She kept locking the doors. She said someone might still be looking for her. Zayden leaned forward, tension coiling in his spine. One night, Leora continued, she called me over and placed the necklace in my hand. She told me it belonged to a woman she once worked for. A good woman. A kind woman. She said something terrible happened that drove the woman away, and that she, my mother, carried guilt for not speaking up. She said the truth was buried in the Karoma family. Zayden's breath hitched imperceptibly. She told me, Leora whispered, that if I ever wanted to know where I truly came from, I needed to find Zayden Karoma, and that he was the only one who could explain everything. Leora's voice broke then. I held her while she died. She made me promise I would find him. I promised. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, ashamed, as if crying in front of a billionaire was a sin. Zayden stared at her, really stared. How could a girl like her be connected to the greatest tragedy of his childhood? His mother's disappearance, the lost necklace, the woman in the photograph. His throat tightened. Your mother's name, he said quietly. What was it? Leora hesitated, not out of fear but out of reverence. Thalia. Thalia Rami. The name hit him like a thunderstrike. He gripped the armrest hard enough for his knuckles to go white. Thalia. He hadn't heard that name since he was 13. A servant in their home. Quiet. Gentle. Always humming old melodies. His mother loved her like a sister. But one night, everything changed. His father had accused Thalia of stealing the necklace. The next morning, both the necklace and his mother were gone. The entire household descended into chaos. Zayden's fist trembled. Pieces of the past, once scattered beyond reach, suddenly snapped together with horrifying clarity. Thalia didn't steal it, Leora said, misreading his silence. She couldn't have. She wasn't that kind of person. Zayden's voice cracked before he could stop it. I know. Leora blinked in confusion. Zayden exhaled shakily. Your mother, she was loyal. She was kind. She protected my mother during the worst days. I was young, but I remember her. Leora's eyes widened. You knew her. He nodded slowly, painfully. Leora stared at him as if the world had tilted on its axis. Then you must know something. Anything. Why did she tell me to find you? What truth was she talking about? Zayden opened his mouth, but a knock interrupted. Coven stepped inside, stiff, uncomfortable. Sir, I have the background report you requested. Leora tensed, instantly clutching the blanket as if it were armor. Zayden gestured for Coven to wait outside, but Leora's eyes narrowed in sharp suspicion. You investigated me, Zayden inhaled. I needed to know who you were. Her eyes hardened, hurt flashing like broken glass. I've told you who I am, and I believe you, he said carefully, but you appeared out of nowhere carrying fragments of a past I've spent years trying to decipher. I couldn't ignore that. She looked away, voice trembling with exhaustion, betrayal, and something like disappointment. People always think poor girls are liars, that we must be after something. His jaw tightened. Not you. She let out a humorless laugh. Then why investigate me? Because Zayden said softly, I needed to protect you. That made her still. Completely. Her breath hitched, her fingers loosened around the blanket. She looked at him, really looked as if trying to understand the sincerity behind those words. Before either could speak again, a sudden crash echoed from the hallway, a tray dropping a startled shout. Then another sound followed, a woman's voice. Sharp, cold, familiar. Mara. Zayden felt a chill race down his spine. He exchanged a look with Leora, who instinctively pulled her knees closer to her chest as if sensing danger. Mara shouldn't be here, he muttered. Leora swallowed. Who is she? A complication, Zayden replied darkly. Outside the door, Mara's heels clicked closer. Each step was a warning. Something told Zayden that whatever lay buried between his family and Leora's mother, Mara was determined to keep it that way. The sharp, rhythmic click of Mara's heels grew louder with every passing second, slicing through the hallway like blades against marble. Zayden stiffened instinctively, eyes narrowing. He knew that sound. It always arrived with trouble wrapped neatly in ambition and poison. Leora sensed it too. She sat straighter, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. A storm of fear flickered across her face, though she tried to hide it. For someone who had spent most of her life surviving on instinct, the tension in the air was unmistakable. The door swung open without warning. Mara stepped in like she owned the room. Tall, sleek, immaculate even in the dim hospital lighting. Her tailored black dress hugged her frame, her hair styled with precision that screamed expensive time and expensive taste. But her smile, it was cold enough to frost glass. Zayden, she said smoothly, though her eyes barely flicked toward him. Instead, they traveled directly to Leora, lingering, calculating, dissecting. Imagine my surprise when I heard you canceled tonight's board dinner because of this. She gestured toward Leora, as if pointing to a stain on her shoe. Zayden's tone dropped several degrees. You weren't invited, Mara laughed lightly. I don't need an invitation to care about your safety. She placed a sharp glance on Leora. Especially when someone suspicious is involved. Leora flinched. Zayden noticed. He rose from his chair, placing himself between the two women. Mara, he warned you, will speak respectfully. Respectfully, her lips twitched upward. To a stranger who conveniently collapses in front of your car and magically carries items from your childhood. Yes, Zayden, I can see exactly what's going on here. Leora shook her head instantly, panic rising. No, I didn't plan anything. Mara's gaze was a blade. Of course not, she said mockingly. Poor girls never plan anything. They just stumble into billionaire cars with stolen necklaces and fabricated stories. Something snapped in Leora. Her breath hitched, but this time it wasn't fear. It was anger, raw and trembling. I didn't steal anything, she whispered fiercely. Those belong to my mother. Mara took a step closer. Your mother? How convenient. Dead people can't defend themselves, can they? Zayden's expression darkened dangerously. Enough. But Mara wasn't done. You're being manipulated, Zayden. This girl is after something. Look at her. Look at her story. It's too perfect, too dramatic, too. It's real. Leora burst out, tears springing hot to her eyes. I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to collapse in front of your car. I'm not lying. I'm just trying to find the truth. Her voice cracked on the last word. For a moment, Mara's expression shifted not with sympathy but with irritation that Leora dared raise her voice at all. Zayden stepped forward, a quiet storm simmering beneath his composed exterior. Mara, leave. She blinked, stunned. Zayden, I said leave. The authority in his voice left no room for negotiation. Coven, who had been lingering nervously by the door, opened it wider as a silent invitation to escort Mara out. But Mara was not a woman who backed down gracefully. She turned toward Zayden with a look crafted from betrayal and fury. When you finally realize what she wants from you, Mara whispered sharply, you'll remember this moment. She pivoted sharply and exited the room, heels clicking like gunshots. The door closed behind her. The silence returned thick and uneasy. Leora exhaled slowly, her hands trembling uncontrollably. She hates me, she murmured, barely audible. She hates anything that challenges her control, Zayden said. Don't take it personally. Leora looked up at him through red-rimmed eyes. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I know, he replied immediately, and he surprised himself with how true it felt. Her gaze softened just a fraction. He sat back down, though his pulse was still thrumming from anger and confusion. I apologize for her behavior, he said. You've been through enough. Leora didn't respond. She just stared down at her hands, twisting her fingers together until her knuckles turned white. Minutes passed. Finally, she whispered, do you think she's right? Do you think I made all this up? Zayden leaned forward, elbows on his knees, searching her face with a steadiness that made her chest tighten. No, I don't think you're lying. But I do think you're in danger. Leora froze. Danger, he hesitated. How much should he tell her? How much did she already know Thalia wasn't just a servant? Zayden said slowly. She was close to my mother. Too close, according to my father. His jaw clenched. He didn't like anyone who challenged his authority. Leora's breath grew shallow. My mother, she never said anything like that. Because she was protecting you, Zayden replied. She always protected the people she cared for. Her eyes glistened, pain, pride, longing all tangled together. She did, Leora whispered, until the day she died. Zayden's chest ached. He didn't understand why he cared so much, but he did. Coven, he said suddenly. His security chief stepped forward quickly. Yes, sir, get the full report. Coven handed him a sealed envelope. Zayden hesitated, glancing at Leora. Do you want to see it with me, or do you want me to read it first? Leora took a shaky breath. I want to know everything. He nodded and opened the envelope. Files, witness accounts, old employment records, medical notes, a faded registry paper. He flipped page after page, his eyes scanning faster, his expression darkening with each line. Leora watched him anxiously, hands twisting the sheets beneath her. Finally, he stopped on a page completely still. His breath caught. She felt dread pool in her stomach. What does it say? Zayden didn't answer immediately. He lifted the paper, bringing it closer to the light. There's a record, he said quietly. A birth clinic near the Karoma estate. About 20 years ago. He swallowed hard. A woman named Thalia Rami gave birth there. Leora's heart thudded painfully. But that's not all, he continued, voice tightening. The father section, it wasn't left blank. The world seemed to slow. Leora's lips parted. What name is there? Zayden lowered the paper, eyes locking onto hers. The name written, he said softly, is Karoma. Everything inside Leora collapsed at once. No, she whispered. That can't be. Zayden leaned closer, voice steady but trembling at the edges. Leora, it means someone from my family, my father, my uncle, or another relative was connected to your mother. She shook her head violently. No, my mother would have told me. She wouldn't lie. She wouldn't keep. She kept it to protect you, Zayden said urgently. If my father was involved, if he did something to drive her away, pain twisted across his face, a pain he couldn't mask. Leora pressed both hands to her chest, breath faltering. This means I'm connected to you. Zayden swallowed, his voice barely steady. It means our lives were tied together long before tonight. She pulled her knees close, trembling uncontrollably. Zayden reached forward, then froze, unsure if he had the right. So he let his hand hover just inches from hers. A silent offering. A promise he didn't fully understand yet. Then a sudden noise shattered the moment, security alarms chiming through the hallway. Coven rushed to the door. Sir, we have a breach. Someone tried accessing the hospital's restricted floor. Zayden stood instantly, energy shifting into something sharp and lethal. Mara, he muttered under his breath. Leora's eyes widened in fear. Why would she? Because Zayden said, stepping protectively in front of her, you're more dangerous to her than you know. His gaze hardened. And now she knows it. Chaos seeped into the quiet hospital corridor like smoke from an unseen fire. The alarm pulsed steadily, low vibrating, unnerving. Leora clutched the blanket to her chest, eyes wide with dread. Zayden stood protectively in front of her posture, rigid, his entire demeanor transforming from conflicted billionaire to a man ready for war. Coven returned, breath slightly uneven. Sir, the cameras caught someone tampering with the card access panel to this floor. They were wearing a cap mask and gloves. Security tried to intercept, but they fled down the stairwell. We're reviewing the footage. Zayden's jaw tightened. That tells me enough. Leora's voice trembled. Is it her? Mara Zayden didn't answer immediately. He stared at the closed door as though he could see through it past the walls and into the shadowed corners where danger waited. Someone definitely wants information silenced, he finally said. Or stolen. And Mara's the only one who knew the exact location of your room. Leora felt a chill crawl up her spine. Why would she want to hurt me? I don't even know her. You don't have to, Zayden said quietly. But you threaten everything she spent years building. Leora blinked. Because of you, no, Zayden replied, surprising both of them. Because of the truth. Leora swallowed. The truth. The word tasted sharp and frightening. What if she wasn't trying to get to me? Leora whispered, fear spreading through her. What if she was trying to destroy something? The documents, the photo, my mother's necklace. Zayden froze, then raced to the bedside table. He snatched the necklace and photograph, exhaling sharply when he saw they were still there. She didn't get inside the room, he muttered. If she had, she would have taken these. Leora lowered her head. Why would she want to erase my mother from this world? Zayden turned toward her, expression haunted. Because your mother was part of a scandal my family buried. And if there's one thing Mara wants, it's to protect the Karoma Empire in her own twisted way. But the truth is the truth, Leora whispered. In my world, Zayden said bitterly, truth is the first thing people try to kill. A silence fell over them, heavy and razor-edged. Coven cleared his throat. Sir, would you like us to reinforce the room? Zayden nodded. Post guards at every entrance. No one gets through without my approval. Coven left to carry out the order. Leora watched Zayden. Watched the tension in his shoulders, the way he paced, the way he clenched his fists, as if fighting ghosts she couldn't see. She realized then that he wasn't simply protecting her out of obligation or pride. He was protecting her out of fear. Fear of what connecting their stories would reveal. Fear of the past he had spent his life avoiding. Fear that everything he believed about his family was built on a rotten foundation. She whispered, you're afraid of something. Zayden stopped mid-step. His back still faced her. Yes, he said quietly. I'm afraid of what I'm going to find if I keep digging. He turned around, and for the first time she saw it. Vulnerability. Real, raw vulnerability hiding behind the wealth, power, and sharp edges. I thought my mother left because she was weak, he said softly. Or because she didn't love me enough. But now I wonder if she was running from something much bigger. Leora's breath caught. My mother... Did she know your mother well? Zayden nodded. Very well. But the night everything fell apart, I only saw fragments. Whispered arguments. Slammed doors. My father yelling. He paused, voice wavering. And then she vanished. Your mother, Leora asked. Both Zayden replied. Thalia and my mother disappeared the same night. Leora gasped. But my mother told me she took me and fled because it wasn't safe anymore. Zayden's eyes locked with hers, shocked, searching, terrified all at once. That means they left together, he whispered. Neither spoke for several seconds. Leora's heart thudded painfully. Why would they leave together? What happened that night? Zayden shook his head slowly. I don't know, but I will find out. Before she could respond, her stomach growled loud enough to echo in the quiet room. Leora froze in mortification. Zayden blinked, then something softened in his expression. When was the last time you ate noon? Yesterday, she admitted in a small voice. Before the rain caught me. He pressed the intercom to order food, but she shook her head instantly, the instinctive panic of someone unused to comfort or generosity. It costs too much. You've already, Leora, Zayden said gently but firmly. Let me help you. Her lips trembled. The kindness felt foreign, overwhelming. A nurse arrived shortly after, with warm porridge, bread, and juice. Leora's eyes filled with tears. She struggled to hide as she ate carefully, almost reverently. Zayden watched her silently, guilt blooming in his chest. How had she survived like this? How had she endured so much alone? Once she finished, he returned to the documents. There's more, he murmured. Leora tensed. More, he held up a faded witness statement. This says that on the night your mother fled, she wasn't alone. Leora leaned forward. With? Your mother, no, Zayden answered. With an infant. Leora's heart slammed into her ribs. That infant, he continued, was not the child she bore in the clinic. It was someone else's. She stared at him, mind racing. But I was the only child she raised. Zayden nodded slowly, which means the other infant was left behind, hidden, or taken. Leora shook her head overwhelmed. You think our mothers switched children? No, Zayden murmured. I think they were running from someone, and one child might have been the reason. Leora pressed her palms to her temples. Why is everything so complicated? Why can't the truth just be simple? Because Zayden said, voice suddenly raw, my father was involved. Leora froze. Her eyes lifted slowly. Are you saying he hurt them? Zayden didn't answer. He didn't need to. His father's cruelty was legend behind closed doors. Leora swallowed hard. What will you do? Zayden lifted his gaze, resolve sharpening like tempered steel. I will uncover everything, every lie, every secret, every crime. If my father had anything to do with your mother's suffering with mine, he will answer for it. Then softer. And I will make sure no one touches you. Not Mara, not my father, not anyone. Leora's breath faltered, a strange warmth spreading in her chest. Comfort, trust, danger, all blended into one. But before the moment could deepen, Kovan slammed the door open again. Sir, urgent update. Zayden straightened. What is it? We reviewed the security footage. The person trying to breach the floor. Leora's pulse raced. Kovan swallowed. It wasn't Mara. A chill swept the room. Zayden's eyes narrowed. Then who was it? Kovan hesitated, face pale. It was a man, tall, older, wearing a hat and mask. But as he fled down the stairs, the cameras caught a reflection. He paused, voice low, almost fearful. A reflection that looked exactly like your father. The world tilted. Leora's blood turned to ice. And Zayden felt something inside him shatter. Impossible, he whispered. But deep down, he already knew it wasn't. For several seconds, the world stood perfectly still, as if even the walls of the hospital refused to breathe. Zayden stared at Kovan, disbelief shadowing every inch of his expression. His father here, on this floor in the middle of the night, moving like a criminal avoiding cameras. It didn't make sense. But the cold, instinctive dread crawling through his spine told him it made too much sense. Leora gripped the blanket so tightly her knuckles whitened. She looked from Kovan to Zayden, confusion and terror mixing in her eyes. Why would your father be here? She whispered. Zayden didn't answer immediately. He turned away, running a shaky hand over his jaw. His mind raced memories, suspicions, fragments of conversations he had ignored for years. Kovan stepped forward. Sir, I know it sounds impossible, but the footage, it's not clear, but the posture, the height, the way he walks. I know how my father walks. Zayden snapped, then immediately forced himself to steady his voice. Where is he now? We're checking the exits. He may have already slipped out. Zayden cursed under his breath. His father was many things: cruel, controlling, manipulative, but careless wasn't one of them. If he had come here, it was for a purpose. A dangerous one. Leora's voice trembled. Does he know about me? Zayden turned toward her, and the answer was already in his eyes before he spoke. He knows someone like you showed up. Someone with pieces of a past he buried. And he will not hesitate to protect his version of the truth. Leora felt the room tilt. Why? What? What is he hiding? Zayden hesitated. He wasn't used to explaining the darkness of his family, not to anyone. But Leora deserved answers. My father, he began slowly, built the Karoma Empire with an iron fist. Respect isn't given in our family, it's enforced. And anyone who defies him simply disappears. Leora's breath faltered. Disappears, Zayden nodded grimly. Employees, partners, even family members. He silences anything that threatens his control. A terrible realization bloomed in Leora's mind. My mother, was she one of them? Zayden's jaw clenched, the truth weighing heavily. I don't know. But after what we've learned, I'm not ruling anything out. Silence pressed against them. Leora pulled the blanket tighter around her small frame. What did he want tonight? Zayden exhaled. Either to retrieve something, or to ensure something never comes to light. Her hand flew to the necklace on the bedside table. This. Possibly, Zayden said softly. Or perhaps the documents. Or perhaps he didn't finish. He didn't have to. Both knew the third possibility. He came for Leora. A shiver ran through her from head to toe. I shouldn't have involved you, she whispered. I didn't know this would. He cut in quickly, firmly. No, the danger isn't your fault. It was there long before you stepped into my life. You didn't create the truth, Leora. You just uncovered a piece of it. Her eyes glistened. And now Zayden added quietly, we uncover the rest. Before Leora could respond, Coven cleared his throat again. Sir, there's more. Zayden stiffened. More. Coven held out a tablet. One of the nurses reported seeing a man lingering near the private records room before the alarm triggered. Zayden took the tablet with steady hands and began reviewing the footage. Although blurry, the figure was unmistakable, tall, composed movements, crisp and purposeful. Exactly like his father. The man approached the records cabinet, typed in a code, and accessed a drawer. Seconds later, the alarm blared. Then he fled. Leora leaned closer. What did he take? Kovan answered. Records from 20 years ago. Specifically, files related to maternity admissions. Leora's heart twisted painfully as if someone squeezed it with icy fingers. Zayden slammed the tablet down on the table. He knows, he muttered. He knows we're getting closer. Leora's pulse raced. Closer to what Zayden turned toward her, something fierce burning in his eyes. Closer to whatever happened the night our mothers vanished. Leora swallowed hard. What are you planning to do? Zayden stood tall, straightening his coat, his voice dropping into a tone she had never heard from him before. Calm, cold, resolute. I'm going to confront him. Leora felt the air leave her lungs. You can't. If he's trying to hide something, he won't tell you. And if he's dangerous, Zayden moved closer, kneeling slightly, so he was eye level with her. Listen to me. I won't let him touch you. I won't let anyone hurt you again. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. We don't even know who I am, she whispered. What if I'm connected to him in a way you don't expect? Zayden's gaze softened unexpectedly. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Her voice broke. All my life I've been looking for pieces of myself, and every piece I find scares me more. You're not alone in this anymore, Leora. She blinked, startled. He meant it. Every word. Coven stepped forward again. Sir, we've secured the floor. But maybe she should be moved somewhere safer. Zayden nodded. Agreed. The hospital is too exposed. Too many staff, too many doorways, too many gaps. Leora tensed. Where will I go? The mansion, Zayden replied, without hesitation. Leora's eyes widened. No, I can't. You can, he interrupted. And you must. My father won't risk making a move on my property. And even if he tried, I'd be there. Leora turned away, overwhelmed. I don't belong in a place like that. Zayden stepped closer, lowering his voice. Leora, safety isn't about belonging. It's about staying alive. Her breath shook. She lifted her gaze, and something in his expression assured her more than his words ever could. Okay, she whispered. I'll go. Relief flickered across Zayden's features, but only briefly. He still had a father to confront. Coven left to arrange transport, while Zayden stayed by Leora's side as nurses prepared her for discharge. She moved slowly, still weak, but her eyes stayed on him as if he was her only stable point in a rapidly tilting world. When the nurses stepped out, Zayden held out the necklace and photograph to her. Keep these close. Don't let them out of your sight. Leora nodded and slipped the necklace under her gown, shivering when the cool metal touched her skin. Thank you, she murmured. Zayden stared at the pendant for a long moment. It looks right on you, he said quietly. She blushed, lowering her eyes. Minutes later, the security team escorted them through a private exit where a sleek armored SUV waited. Zayden helped her inside, gentle, careful, as if she were something precious. As the vehicle pulled away, Leora stared out the tinted window at the hospital fading behind them. A life fading behind her. A life she might never return to. She swallowed, turning to Zayden. What will happen when you confront your father? Zayden's eyes fixed on the road ahead, cold determination settling over him like armor. Whatever he's been hiding, I'll expose it. I won't allow his sins to haunt us anymore. Us, she echoed softly. He turned to her, expression, fierce, protective, unyielding. Yes, us. The SUV sped into the night, toward the mansion, toward the truth, toward a storm waiting to be unleashed. And Leora understood one thing. Nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The night was thick with tension as the SUV sped through the empty streets, weaving toward the Karoma mansion like a silent bullet. Streetlights flickered past the windows in long golden streaks, but inside the vehicle, the air was still too still. Leora felt every second stretch and twist tightening around her chest like invisible ropes. Zayden sat beside her, sharply focused, yet unnervingly quiet. His expression had hardened into something unreadable, a mask forged from suspicion, fury, and the heavy weight of buried memories resurfacing too fast. Leora watched him out of the corner of her eye, noticing the way his jaw pulsed, the way his fingers tapped soundlessly against his thigh. He looked like a man preparing for a battlefield he never wanted to step onto. "Are you okay?" she whispered finally. He didn't answer at first. He continued staring straight ahead, eyes fixed on nothing and everything. Then slowly he exhaled. "I'm thinking." Leora lowered her gaze, bracing for the worst. "Thinking about your father, I'm thinking about the lies I grew up believing," he said quietly, "and how they're collapsing faster than I can catch them." She didn't know what to say. What could she offer someone who had lived his entire life in a gilded cage of illusions? The SUV turned into a private road, flanked with tall palm trees and shadowy hedges. The iron gates of the Karoma mansion swung open silently as if expecting them. Warm lights illuminated the driveway, but the warmth felt false, like a beautiful stage masking a sinister play. "Stay close to me," Zayden murmured as the vehicle rolled to a stop. "Don't speak to anyone unless I say it's safe." Leora nodded tightly. Fear and resolve tangled inside her chest. Coven jumped out first, scanning the perimeter before giving a curt nod. Zayden stepped out next, extending a hand to help Leora down from the SUV. She hesitated only a second before taking it. His grip was firm, grounding. The mansion loomed ahead, towering, magnificent, intimidating in every sense. Its marble pillars and gleaming windows reflected their shadows back at them, reminding Leora just how small she was in a world built by giants. Inside, the foyer glowed with warm chandeliers and polished floors that echoed their footsteps. Every corner felt like it was watching her. Leora pulled the necklace under her clothes, instinctively hiding it. She sensed danger everywhere, even in the air. "Your home is," she whispered. Complicated. Zayden finished for her. He led her down a hallway until they reached a room near the east wing, a spacious guest suite with soft lighting and an oversized bed. Leora's breath caught. She had never seen a room like this, not even in pictures. "You'll stay here until I know more," Zayden said. "Coven and 2 guards will patrol outside your door. No one gets through." Leora nodded, though, unease twisted in her stomach. "Are you going to find him now?" Zayden hesitated at the threshold, fingers gripping the doorframe. "Yes. If he came to the hospital tonight, he's hiding something urgent, something dangerous. And what if he's here?" Zayden's jaw tightened. "Then I'll deal with him." Leora stepped forward before she realized what she was doing. "Zayden, please be careful." He looked at her, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them. A connection neither knew how to name. A thread binding their fates tighter with each truth uncovered. "I will," he promised. Then he turned and left, leaving Leora alone with her racing heartbeat. Zayden strode through the halls with long, relentless steps. Each echo of his shoes seemed louder than the last. He knew every corner of this mansion intimately, the rooms where he once played as a child, the corridors where he hid, when his father's temper erupted, the stairwells where servants whispered about things children weren't meant to hear. He headed straight to his father's study, a room as old as every secret buried beneath the Karoma name. 2 guards stood outside, stiff and nervous. They stepped aside without a word as Zayden pushed open the heavy wooden door. The room was dim, lit only by a single lamp, casting long shadows across shelves of ancient books and leather-bound documents. The scent of cologne, old wood, and cold power lingered in the air. And there, in a high-backed chair facing the window, sat Adrian Karoma, Zayden's father. His silhouette was unmistakable, tall, commanding, with shoulders that weighed down the room. He didn't turn immediately. "I heard you went to the hospital tonight," Zayden said, voice low but steady. Adrian finally swiveled the chair around. His face was calm, too calm. His graying beard was neatly trimmed, his sharp eyes cold as winter steel. He studied Zayden with a detached curiosity, like one might regard an interesting insect. "A son should greet his father properly," Adrian said softly. "A father should stay away from crime scenes," Zayden replied. Adrian's lips curled into a thin, chilling smile. "Ah, so they showed you the footage." Zayden stepped forward. "Why were you there?" "Hospital records," Adrian said casually. "It came to my attention someone accessed files they shouldn't have. Those files belong to Thalia Rami." Adrian's eyes hardened ever so slightly. A name better forgotten. Zayden's temper flared. "It won't be forgotten. Not anymore." "Is this about the girl?" Adrian asked. "The one you smuggled into this house like a stray animal?" "Leora is not a stray." Adrian eyed him sharply. "She is the daughter of a servant who stole from our family." She didn't steal anything, Zayden snapped. You know that. Adrian leaned back in his chair. I know she carries objects that should have never left this mansion. And I know Thalia lied the night she fled. Zayden stepped closer, voice shaking with barely restrained fury. You accused her without proof. You destroyed 2 families. You enough, Adrian cut in sharply. You know nothing, boy. There are truths in this world that are better buried. Not when those truths involve my mother, Zayden growled. Adrian's expression flickered just for a split second. Your mother made her choices. In Thalia, Adrian's silence was its own confession. Zayden took another step. Did you hurt them? Adrian's eyes locked with his son's. Some sacrifices must be made for the greater good of the family. Zayden clenched his fists. They were people, not sacrifices. They were liabilities, Adrian corrected calmly. And this girl, Leora, she is a threat. She carries evidence, questions bloodlines that should remain hidden. There it was. Bloodlines. Zayden felt the room tilt. What bloodlines? Adrian hesitated, then said nothing, which meant everything. Zayden's voice dropped to a whisper. Who is she to us? Adrian's jaw tightened. That doesn't matter. It matters to me. It shouldn't, Adrian snapped, rising to his feet, with a cold, towering authority that once terrified Zayden as a child. You will remove her from this house immediately, before she destroys everything we built. Zayden stared at him, quiet fury simmering beneath the surface. No, he said calmly. Adrian blinked. What? Zayden stepped forward until he stood inches away. I said no, Leora stays. And I will find out everything you're hiding. Adrian's eyes turned murderous. You are making a mistake, he hissed. Maybe, Zayden said. But not as big as the mistake you made 20 years ago. Adrian's hand twitched toward a drawer. Zayden saw it, and so did Coven, entering silently behind him with 2 guards. Sir Coven warned softly, positioning himself defensively. Adrian straightened, mask returning. You dare bring guards into my study. You brought danger into my life first, Zayden snapped. Now I'm returning the favor. Adrian's chest rose and fell, slow, controlled rage in every breath. This is not over, Zayden. Zayden's voice was ice. You're right. It's just beginning. He turned sharply and walked out before the weight of that stare could crush him. Down the hall, Leora sat alone on the bed, knees pulled to her chest. Every creak of the mansion made her jump. Every distant footstep sent panic through her veins. Then, the door opened softly. Zayden stepped inside. He looked exhausted, haunted, burning. Are you okay? She asked instantly. No, he admitted. But you will be. I'll make sure of it. She swallowed. Did you find him? I did. And Zayden closed his eyes for a brief moment, then whispered, he knows who you are. Leora's heart stopped. And now Zayden continued, stepping closer. He fears what you represent. Her voice broke. What do I represent? Zayden held her gaze steady, fierce, unbreakable. The truth, he said. And he will do anything to stop it. Leora trembled. Zayden touched her shoulder gently, but I won't let him. And in that moment, fragile, terrifying, powerful, Leora believed him. Leora barely slept that night. The guest room was enormous, warm, soft, and luxurious in every way, but comfort meant nothing when fear coiled tight in her chest like a living thing. Shadows from the tall windows crawled across the ivory walls. Every distant footstep, every whisper of wind against the glass made her heart jump. The Karoma mansion was beautiful, but to Leora it felt like she was sleeping in the jaws of a predator. She kept the necklace under her pillow fingers, brushing the cold metal every few minutes, as if it were her only lifeline. The photograph she held in her hands, staring at the face of the young Zayden she hadn't known was him until hours ago. At some point in the early morning, exhaustion won. She drifted into a restless sleep. The sound of raised voices snapped her awake. Leora sat up immediately, clutching the blanket. The voices were muffled but unmistakable. Zayden and someone else. Someone older, someone furious. She crept to the door, pressing her ear against the wood. You won't touch her, Zayden hissed, voice coming from the hallway. Don't be foolish, Adrian barked. That girl is a threat. You're letting sentiment cloud your judgment. Leora's pulse spiked. She held her breath as Adrian continued, his tone dripping with disdain. You embarrassed yourself last night, barging into my study like a child, making accusations without evidence. And all because of some girl you found on the street. She's not just some girl, Zayden snapped. You know exactly who she is. Silence fell tense, dangerous. Adrian's reply came in a chilling whisper. I know she is trouble. Leora's stomach twisted painfully. No, Zayden said. She is the reason Mother ran that night. She is the reason Thalia disappeared. You've been hiding the truth for 20 years, and now it's catching up. Adrian scoffed. The truth. You don't know the first thing about the truth. You are a child clinging to scraps of fantasy. Leora leaned closer, heart hammering. I will not let you ruin her, Zayden said. You think she cares about you, Adrian growled. Open your eyes. She is here for inheritance, bloodline, power. She knows she has leverage. Zayden's voice dropped to a deadly tone. She didn't even know who I was when she collapsed in front of my car. Another silence. Then Adrian spoke with dangerous softness. Even better for her story. Leora squeezed her eyes shut, tears gathering. She wasn't trying to manipulate anyone. She'd lived her whole life with nothing. How could he think she wanted their wealth? I'm done listening to your paranoia and cruelty, Zayden said sharply. You will stay away from her, and from me. You forget who built this house, Adrian snarled. Who pays every guard, who owns every inch of land you stand on? No, Zayden replied coldly. You forget that I am no longer a boy afraid of you. Footsteps stormed away. Leora didn't dare move until the silence stretched long and empty. Then another knock, soft, cautious, came from her door. She stepped back as the door opened slightly. Leora Zayden's voice was gentle, strained. Her breath rushed out in relief. I'm here. He entered the room, closing the door behind him. His hair was slightly disheveled, his expression shadowed with exhaustion and fury. You heard, he said, not a question. Leora nodded. Zayden sat on the edge of her bed, head bowed. For the first time since meeting him, he looked defeated. I'm sorry, Leora whispered. He looked up sharply. Don't apologize. You've done nothing wrong. He hates me, she said softly. He fears you, Zayden corrected. That's different. Leora wrapped her arms around herself. Because of my mother, because of what your mother knew, Zayden said, and what she tried to protect. He took a deep breath. I meant what I said earlier. I won't let him touch you. Leora's eyes softened with a kind of trust she didn't know she was capable of giving. Why, she whispered. Zayden hesitated, but only for a moment. Because you're the first person who ever forced me to question my world, and because your pain is tied to mine more deeply than either of us realized. Leora dropped her gaze, flustered. They sat in silence for several moments before Zayden spoke again. There's someone you need to meet, someone who might help us understand what happened, but you must promise to trust me. I trust you, Leora said immediately, then surprised herself with how true it felt. Zayden led her to the back of the mansion, where a narrow staircase descended toward a private wing she hadn't seen before. Guards followed at a respectful distance. Who lives down here? Leora whispered. Someone who knows more about my family than I ever did. At the bottom of the stairs, Zayden paused before a quiet door. He knocked gently and pushed it open. Inside sat a woman in her late 50s, her hair neatly braided, her eyes tired but kind. She wore a simple uniform, not quite a maid's attire, but close. The woman stood immediately. Zayden? I didn't expect you so early. I need your help, Amma, Zayden said. Amma's eyes softened. Always. Zayden turned to Leora. Amma helped raise me after Thalia and my mother disappeared. She knows the truth better than anyone. Leora stepped forward nervously. Hello. Amma's eyes took Leora in carefully, her posture, her frightened eyes, her necklace. Her eyes widened. That necklace, Amma whispered. Child, where did you get that necklace? Leora touched it instinctively. It belonged to my mother. Amma inhaled sharply, hand flying to her mouth. Oh dear heaven, you're her daughter. Leora nodded hesitantly. Yes, Leora Rami. Amma's knees weakened and she grasped the chair for support. You look just like her, just like Thalia. Leora blinked back tears. Zayden spoke gently. Amma, we need to know what happened the night they disappeared. Amma closed her eyes as if bracing herself against a storm she'd hoped never to face again. It was a terrible night, Zayden. A night full of screams, secrets, and betrayal. Leora's pulse raced. Tell us, please. Amma sank into her chair. Your mother and Zayden's mother were closer than sisters. They trusted each other with everything. But Adrian, he despised their friendship. Especially when he discovered your mother knew things he wanted buried. Zayden felt ice in his veins. What things? Amma looked at both of them, eyes filled with sorrow. That Adrian fathered a child with Thalia. Leora's breath caught sharp, painful. Zayden froze. Amma's voice trembled. You, Leora, you were meant to be hidden. Born in secret, protected by both women. But Adrian found out the night you were born. He confronted them violently. Leora staggered backward. No, Amma nodded, tears welling. Your mother fled with you. And Zayden's mother helped her escape, knowing she would never see either of you again. Zayden felt the world tilt violently. My mother, she left because she was saving them. Amma nodded. Yes, child. She sacrificed everything. Leora clutched her necklace, shaking uncontrollably. Every truth hit her like a hammer. Then Amma added one more devastating blow. But there is something else you must know. Leora looked up, unable to breathe. Amma, whispered, Adrian sent men after Thalia that night. She outran them once, but he never stopped searching. If he knows you're alive now, he will try to finish what he started. The room spun. Leora collapsed into a chair, hands shaking, tears spilling uncontrollably. Zayden dropped to his knees in front of her, gripping her shoulders firmly. Leora, look at me. She lifted her tear-filled eyes. I'm not letting him touch you. Not then. Not now. Not ever. She tried to breathe, but her chest was tight with grief, fear, and a truth she had never imagined. I'm his daughter, she whispered, horrified. I'm the daughter of the man who destroyed my mother's life. No, Zayden said fiercely. You are the daughter of a woman who sacrificed everything to save you. He squeezed her hands. And I swear I will finish what our mothers started. I will protect you until this ends. Amma watched them, tears sliding down her cheeks. Your destinies have been tied since the day you were born, she murmured. And now, it seems the past has come to claim its debt. Leora leaned forward, trembling. Zayden wrapped his arms around her, not out of pity, but out of a vow forged in shared pain. And in the quiet depth of that embrace, Leora whispered the truth she had feared all night. I'm terrified. Zayden's voice was steady, unshakable. I know, but you're not alone anymore. The room fell into a tense, trembling silence after Amma's final revelation. The air felt too thick to breathe, too heavy with the weight of a truth buried for 2 decades. Leora sat frozen, her fingers digging into the armrest of the chair, as if it were the only thing keeping her soul from falling apart. Zayden stayed kneeling in front of her, refusing to let her face the truth alone. But inside, he was unraveling. His father, her father, a past intertwined so violently it left scars on both of them before they were even old enough to speak. We need answers, Zayden said, finally standing. His voice was steady but barely. Not guesses, not secrets. Answers. Amma nodded, wiping tears with the back of her hand. Be careful, child. The truth will not come gently. Zayden turned to Leora. You should rest. You need time to take this in. But Leora shook her head violently. No. Rest is the last thing I can do. I need to understand everything. Why my mother fled. Why she raised me alone. Why your father hunted us. Her voice cracked, and she forced her trembling lips into a thin line. Please, don't ask me to rest. Zayden hesitated. Then he nodded. All right, but you stay with me. He offered his hand. Leora stared at it, hesitant, then slowly slipped her smaller fingers into his. Warmth surged up her arm, comfort, mixed with the terrifying knowledge that this man was the only anchor she had left. Together they left Amma's room, the door closing behind them, with a quiet thud that felt too ominous to ignore. As they walked down the corridor toward the main part of the mansion, a sudden voice pierced the stillness. So this is the little stray causing all this chaos. Leora froze instantly. A woman stepped forward from the shadows of the hallway, tall, elegant, her dark red lipstick sharp as a blade. Her hair was pulled into a sleek bun, and her posture oozed cold entitlement. It was Mara. She gave Leora a disdainful once-over. Interesting. I would have expected someone taller, smarter, perhaps less pathetic-looking, considering the drama following you. Zayden moved instantly, stepping between them like a protective wall. Mara, walk away. Mara ignored him. Her eyes remained locked on Leora, filled with venom. I heard the most fascinating rumor this morning. Something about a servant's daughter claiming ties to the Karoma family. She tilted her head mockingly. I suppose rags to royalty is a story the tabloids will eat up. Leora's throat tightened. I'm not trying to be royalty, Mara smirked. Of course you are. Why else would you cling to Zayden like a parasite? Zayden snapped enough. Mara's eyes flashed with simmering rage. Why are you defending her? What spell did she put you under? Zayden tightened his jaw. I'm warning you, you're throwing away everything, Mara hissed. Your inheritance, your reputation. The board already questions you, Zayden. And now you bring her into your home. Leora lowered her gaze, her fingers curling into a fist. Zayden's voice dropped to a chilling calm. This is my home, and I decide who stays. Mara laughed, sharp, incredulous. You're protecting her. After everything your father did to keep this family respectable, Zayden's expression turned lethal. Respectable, my father destroyed innocent lives. Mara's smirk faltered for the first time. You need to leave, he said, stepping closer. Now. For a moment, Mara said nothing. Her jaw worked anger, shaking her frame. Then she leaned in toward Leora, her whisper cold enough to freeze the blood in her veins. You don't belong here, and I will never let a girl like you ruin this family. Before Zayden could react, Mara turned sharply and walked away heels, stabbing the marble tiles with each furious step. Leora exhaled shakily. She hates me. Let her, Zayden replied. She can't harm you. But Leora shook her head. She will try. Zayden glanced at her concern, etched deep in his features. I'm not letting anyone near you. He led her to a smaller private lounge away from the main halls. It was quiet, with warm colors and wide windows overlooking the estate gardens. Sit, he said gently. Leora sank onto the couch, though her body still felt like it was buzzing with fear and disbelief. Zayden poured her a glass of water and placed it in her hands. She didn't drink. Zayden, she began softly, why does Mara care so much? Why does she look at me like I'm poison? He reluctantly sat opposite her. Mara has been close to my father for years, more than I ever liked. She wants influence, power, control, and she thinks she can secure it through me. So she's... Leora hesitated. Interested in you, he grimaced, or what I represent. But her loyalty is not to me. It's to my father's legacy. Leora's lips pressed into a thin line. And I threaten that legacy. No, Zayden corrected firmly. The truth does. She looked down at the necklace resting against her chest. The truth. A word that had turned her entire life upside down. Slowly, Leora asked, do you regret helping me? Zayden looked stunned. What? No, you've risked so much, she whispered. Your family, your future, everything. He moved closer, sitting beside her. Leora, my future was built on lies. If helping you destroys the parts of my life built by my father's cruelty, then let it burn. Her breath hitched at his certainty. Then unexpectedly her tears returned. I'm scared, she admitted, voice faint. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what he'll do, or what comes next. Zayden reached out carefully, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was gentle, grounding. You are Leora Rami. You are the daughter of a brave woman who faced monsters to keep you alive. You're stronger than you know. She collapsed forward, burying her face in her hands as quiet sobs shook her shoulders. Zayden pulled her into his arms. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't dramatic. It was the embrace of two people drowning in the same ocean, clinging to each other to stay afloat. After minutes passed, Leora finally breathed again. She pulled back slightly, wiping her face. What do we do now? Zayden, straightened resolve settling across his features like armor. We expose everything. Leora blinked. How? By uncovering every truth my father hid. Amma knows part of the story. You know another. And there's more, there has to be more. Someone else in this mansion must know something. He stood abruptly. I'll call the investigators I trust. Ones my father can't bend. We'll find the files he stole from the hospital. Track down witnesses. Question old employees. There will be cracks in his lies. Leora watched him, his determination, his fire, the fierce protectiveness that wrapped around her like a shield. You're risking too much, she said softly. For the right reason, he replied. For the first time in my life. A knock sounded at the door. Coven! Sir, he said, voice tense. The security team found something outside. Near the back gate. Zayden stiffened. What is it? Coven hesitated, then stepped aside. A guard entered holding a small piece of fabric. Black, silky, burnt at the edges. Leora's stomach dropped. That's Mara's scarf, Zayden said, instantly recognizing it. Coven nodded grimly. And it wasn't just lying there. Someone left it pinned to the gate. With a message. He handed Zayden a folded paper. Zayden opened it. One sentence. One of you will not survive the truth. Leora went cold. Zayden crushed the note in his fist, fury igniting like wildfire. This is war now. Leora's voice trembled. Zayden, what do we do? He turned to her eyes, burning with a promise stronger than fear. We fight. And for the first time, Leora believed they might actually win. Night had settled over the Karoma mansion, like a heavy cloak, dense and suffocating. The chandeliers glowed dimly, their golden light unable to soften the dread that crept through every corner. Leora stood frozen in place, staring at the crumpled note in Zayden's hand, as if it were a death sentence. One of you will not survive the truth. The words lingered in the air, echoing through her mind long after Zayden's fingers had crushed the paper into a tight fist. A warning, a threat, a promise. It's Mara, Leora whispered, though fear made her voice barely audible. She's trying to scare us. No, Zayden said coldly. Mara is impulsive, vindictive, but she's not this elaborate. This message, he glanced at the torn scarf again. This is someone else's handwriting. Your father, Leora breathed. Zayden didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened. His silence said enough. Coven stepped forward, lowering his voice. Sir, the scarf was placed intentionally. Whoever left it wanted you to find it fast. Zayden nodded slowly. They're pushing us, trying to make us panic. Leora swallowed hard. It's working. At that, Zayden turned to her expression, softening slightly. Don't let them win, Leora. Fear is exactly what they want. Her fingers curled into trembling fists. I'm trying. Coven cleared his throat. Sir, we increased the guards around the mansion. But there's something else. Zayden stiffened. What now? One of the guards spotted movement near the old garden shed behind the west wall. When they approached, the intruder ran. Couldn't identify them, but they left footprints, small ones. Leora's breath hitched. Small. Mara, she asked. Coven shook his head. Too small and too light. We think it was a woman, but not her. A rush of unease washed over Leora. Someone else is involved. Someone we haven't seen. Zayden exchanged a dark look with Coven. Seems like it. The tension thickened until it felt impossible to breathe. Leora took a shaky step back, pressing herself against the couch. I want the truth, she whispered, but I don't want anyone hurt because of me. Zayden moved toward her, his posture protective, grounding. Listen to me. He took her trembling hands. You're not responsible for their sins. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose this past. But you are choosing courage. That alone already makes you stronger than they ever were. Her eyes glistened. Come, he said softly. There's somewhere I need to show you. They walked down another hallway, long, silent, lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow them. Leora shivered. Every painting felt like a reminder she wasn't welcome here. Zayden stopped at an old wooden door near the back of the mansion. What's this place? Leora asked. The archive room, he said. Every important family document is stored here. Records my father doesn't want touched. Leora hesitated. Zayden, is this safe? No, he said honestly. But it's necessary. Coven inserted a security code and unlocked the door. It creaked open, releasing a faint, dusty smell, old paper, ink, forgotten secrets. Inside, countless shelves stood towering over them, filled with boxes, binders, files dating back generations. It was a labyrinth of history, some glorious, some poisonous. Zayden led her to the corner. This is where my father kept the hospital files he stole, before transferring them elsewhere. Leora pressed a hand to her chest. Why hide maternity records? What was he afraid of? Zayden pulled down a worn box labeled 199X, Special Cases Restricted. This, he said quietly, might have answers. Coven stood guard at the door while Zayden and Leora knelt on the floor, carefully opening the box. Inside, wrapped in cloth, lay dozens of sealed envelopes. Medical documents, birth records, confidential statements. Leora's hands trembled as Zayden passed one envelope to her. The name on it blurred until her vision cleared. Thalia Rami, date of admission confidential. Her breath shuddered. With hesitant fingers, she opened it. Inside, the pages revealed details she had never imagined would still exist. Her mother's medical history, signatures from doctors, invoices marked forged cancellations, and 2 fingerprints. But it wasn't the official record that made Leora's blood turn to ice. It was the handwritten note at the bottom. The child is not safe. Hide her. He must never know. Leora gasped sharply. This is my mother's handwriting. Zayden's muscles stiffened. Your mother was terrified. Of him, Leora whispered, voice trembling. Of what Adrian would do if he knew about me. Zayden clenched his jaw. There's more. He handed her another file, one stamped with Marisa Karoma Private. His mother. Leora opened the file slowly, dread swirling in her chest. Inside, a series of letters exchanged between Marisa and Thalia. Messages written in hurried, desperate script. One letter from Marisa, he found out. He confronted me. I fear he will harm her. I fear he will harm you. We must leave tonight. Another from Thalia, I will protect the child. Run while you can. Save yourself. Leora's breath came in short, painful bursts. Zayden exhaled sharply, his chest rising with fury. My mother was trying to protect yours and you. He sifted through more papers. There's something missing. The part that explains the confrontation. The final hours. Just then a dull thud echoed from somewhere deep inside the mansion. Coven looked up sharply. Sir, did you hear that? Zayden nodded, rising slowly. His protective instincts surged. Stay close to me, he told Leora. She obeyed instantly, gripping his sleeve. Coven drew his weapon and led them out of the archive room. The hallway was quiet, too quiet. Another sound. A faint scrape. Like someone dragging something across marble floors, they moved cautiously toward the central hall. Then a scream, high-pitched, sharp, echoing through the mansion. Leora flinched, clutching Zayden's arm. What was that? She whispered. Zayden's eyes hardened, sounded like one of the maids. Coven moved ahead quickly. Stay behind me. They turned the corner and found Amma pressed against the wall, shaking violently, one hand clutching her throat. Amma Leora hurried to her. Amma's eyes were wide with terror. Child, you must leave. It's not safe. She's here. Who? Zayden demanded. Amma pointed a trembling finger toward the next hallway. Footsteps echoed from beyond. Soft, controlled, female. Mara emerged from the shadows, her expression twisted in something between fury and triumph. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood someone else, a woman Leora had never seen before. She was younger than Mara, with sharp features and cold, calculating eyes. She held something in her hand, something metallic. Zayden stepped in front of Leora instantly. Who is she? Mara smirked. A friend, then corrected herself. No, a partner. The young woman's voice was chillingly calm. Adrian sent us to clean up a mess, and unfortunately for you, her eyes slid to Leora. You are the mess. Leora's breath stopped. Zayden's fury ignited like wildfire. Touch her and I will destroy every one of you. The young woman smiled, slow and cruel. That's adorable. Mara crossed her arms. You can't protect her, Zayden. The truth she carries will tear your family apart. Zayden stepped forward. Good. It deserves to. Mara's eyes darkened. Then I'll handle her myself. She lunged. Coven intercepted her, instantly blocking with brute force. The young woman dashed toward Leora, but Zayden moved faster. He grabbed Leora by the waist, pulling her behind him as the intruder slashed at the air where she'd been standing a second before. Chaos erupted. Guards rushed in. Mara screamed. Amma sobbed. Leora trembled uncontrollably, and Zayden wrapped an arm around her as the guards wrestled the attackers. I've got you, he whispered fiercely. I won't let them take you. She clung to him with everything she had. For the first time in her life, Leora truly feared death, but she feared losing him even more. Screams filled the marble corridor, echoing off the high ceilings as guards grappled with Mara and the mysterious woman at her side. Leora pressed herself against Zayden, trembling uncontrollably, her heart slamming so violently she could barely breathe. Everything was moving too fast, too sudden, like nightmares made real. Mara thrashed wildly against the guards, restraining her, her voice raw with rage. You don't understand what you're doing, Zayden. She will destroy everything. Zayden ignored her. His grip on Leora's waist was iron protective and unyielding. He backed her away from the chaos, keeping his body between her and the attackers. Leora, listen to me, he said, voice steady, despite the storm raging around them. You're safe. I'm not letting anyone near you. The young woman who'd come with Mara spat at the ground, glaring through her curtain of loose black hair. Your father warned us you'd be stubborn, she hissed. He said you'd always choose weakness. My father, Zayden growled, doesn't get to define who I protect. Her smirk sharpened. He'll be disappointed when he finds out you failed. Before the guards could tighten their hold, the woman twisted violently, slipped an arm free, and slammed her elbow into one of their ribs. The guard collapsed with a cry. Another guard reached for her, but she moved like liquid shadow, swift, ruthless, trained. Stop her, Coven barked. Two guards tackled her, but not before she managed a final move. Her hand snapped open, releasing something small and metallic that skittered across the floor. A flash of light, a smoke pellet. Down, Coven yelled. Zayden didn't hesitate. He dragged Leora into his chest and shielded her with his body as thick gray smoke exploded outward, swallowing the hallway in a choking cloud. The guards coughed violently. Amma collapsed to her knees, wheezing. Through the haze, Leora felt Zayden move steady, certain guiding her toward the nearest door. Keep low, he said, his voice near her ear. She obeyed without question. Coven's voice cut through the smoke. I've got Mara. She's not getting away this time. But the other woman, the one with the cold eyes and lethal grace, was gone. She'd vanished into the mansion like a ghost. Within minutes, the smoke cleared under the ventilation system's force. Guards rushed to escort Amma to safety, coughing and shaken. Zayden kept Leora close, scanning every corner as if another threat could leap out at any moment. He didn't relax, not even for a second. Only when Coven approached did he finally loosen his grip, but only slightly. Sir Coven said, breath rough, we've secured Mara in the lower detention room. But the other one escaped. She knew the layout of the mansion. Zayden cursed under his breath. She's trained. Father must have sent her. Coven nodded grimly. Yes, sir. And if she got in once, she'll try again. Leora wrapped her arms around herself, her entire body trembling. Why? Why is all this happening? Why does your father want me gone so badly? Zayden's expression tightened. Because the truth you carry is the one thing that can destroy him. Leora's eyes shimmered with fear and something like sorrow. And would the truth destroy you too? He held her gaze soft but unwavering. No. The truth will free me. His words struck her somewhere deep, somewhere raw. But before she could respond, Coven stepped closer. Sir, there's another problem. Zayden stiffened. What now? Coven handed him a small device, a sleek matte black recording pen. We found this in the corner near the staircase. Someone was eavesdropping earlier. Zayden's jaw clenched. Was it recording? Yes, Coven said. We checked. It captured your conversation with Amma. Leora's breath hitched. Everything she said, Coven nodded. Zayden's fists curled. Then someone has the recording by now. And that means they know she's his daughter, Coven finished. And they know your mother helped her escape. Leora's knees buckled. Zayden caught her instantly, steadying her. Breathe, Leora. I've got you. But she shook her head, panic rising. This is my fault. If I hadn't come here, if I hadn't searched for answers, no. His voice cut through her spiraling fear. If anyone is at fault, it's the man who hunted your mother. The man who hunted you. Leora touched the pendant resting against her chest. Her mother's necklace. Her mother's last protection. He's never going to stop, she whispered. Is he? Zayden didn't lie? No. Not until he's confronted. Leora felt her breath falter. Then, what do we do now? Zayden looked at Coven. Double security around Leora. 2 guards at her door. 1 inside the room. Coven nodded. But we're not staying blind, Zayden continued. We go after the missing pieces. Where do we start? Leora asked. He met her gaze, intense, unshakable, with the people who were silenced. Zayden led Leora to a private study on the 3rd floor, a room his father rarely entered but his mother once cherished. The walls were lined with books, old maps, and shelves of artifacts collected by Marissa Karoma during her travels. The room smelled faintly of jasmine, the perfume she used to wear. Leora paused at the threshold. This was your mother's room, Zayden nodded slowly. Her sanctuary. He stepped inside, carefully opening drawers, riffling through old journals, letters, notebooks. Leora moved toward a shelf filled with photo albums. Her fingers brushed the dusty spines. One album in particular caught her eye, wrapped in faded blue fabric, tucked behind the others as if hidden intentionally. Zayden, she whispered. Look. He crossed the room quickly. Together they opened the album. The first photos showed Marissa smiling under sunlight, her eyes gentle, her laughter visible even through still images. Then pictures of Marissa and Thalia, young, radiant, close. In some photographs, baby blankets appeared in the background. 2 bottles sat on a table. A crib. Leora's breath caught. There were 2 babies, Zayden frowned. Maybe, but I don't remember another child. They flipped to the next page. A photo slipped out, a small creased image. Zayden picked it up carefully. His heart stopped. It was Thalia holding a newborn baby. Her eyes were tired but full of love. But Zayden froze because... It's not you, Leora whispered, staring at the child. I wasn't nearly this small when she escaped. No, Zayden murmured. This isn't you, but it's someone. His chest tightened painfully, a thought creeping into his mind, a possibility that twisted his stomach. What if he said slowly there were 2 infants that night? Leora stared at him wide-eyed. What are you saying? That night was chaos, Zayden whispered. My father chasing your mother, my mother helping her escape. What if there was another baby involved? A second child who's been hidden all this time? A chill swept through Leora. A sibling, mine, Zayden shook his head slowly. Or mine. Her breath caught. A shared silence filled the room, heavy, with realization trembling at the edges of a truth too dangerous to touch. Then a vibration broke the moment. Coven's phone. He answered quickly, then his face drained of color. Sir, we have a problem. Zayden stiffened. What now? Coven swallowed. Mara escaped the detention room. Leora gasped. How? Zayden demanded. It looks like someone helped her, Coven said. A guard has gone missing too. Zayden cursed violently. But Coven wasn't finished. We found a note in the empty cell. He handed Zayden a torn piece of paper. 3 words. The other child. Leora's heart nearly stopped. Zayden stared at the words, pulse pounding in his ears. Amma was right. The past wasn't done with him. And someone out there knew exactly what pieces were still missing. Someone who intended to use the truth as a weapon. Against Leora. Against Zayden. Against everything both their mothers died to protect. Zayden turned to Leora, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and determination. Leora, he whispered, this changes everything. She looked up at him terrified. What does it mean? Zayden closed his eyes for a second, then whispered. It means there's someone else out there. Someone who ties both our lives together. Leora trembled. Someone who might be the key to everything. He nodded. And someone my father wants dead even more than you. A cold wind cut through the mansion, even though every window was shut. Leora felt it, an invisible dread curling around her spine. The words, the other child, echoed in her mind like a curse refusing to loosen its grip. Zayden paced the length of the study, running a hand through his hair, his composure unraveling with each step. Coven stood rigidly near the door, still gripping the note as if it might bite him. Leora sat on the edge of a velvet armchair, her hands clasped so tightly together they had gone numb. Zayden, she whispered, who is the other child? Do you think they're alive? Zayden stopped, pacing his breath, ragged. I don't know, he said, honestly. But if they are, they're in more danger than you. Leora flinched. Why? Zayden closed the distance between them, kneeling in front of her the way he had done at the hospital. But this time there was urgency in his eyes, an almost desperate need to keep her anchored. Because if my father has spent 20 years trying to bury the truth, then this second child is the biggest threat to him. Bigger than you. Bigger than any document. Leora swallowed hard. But a child, a baby back then. How could a newborn be a threat to such a powerful man? Zayden's jaw tightened. Bloodline, inheritance, legacy. His voice dropped lower. If that child is biologically his, and if their existence was hidden, then everything, his wealth, his power, his empire, could legally fall to them. Leora's breath hitched. A shiver swept through her. Then I'm not the one he fears most, she whispered. It's the other child. Zayden took her hands gently. No, Leora, you're still connected. Through your mother, through mine. Through the night, everything went wrong. Coven cleared his throat. Sir, there's something else. Both turned toward him. We reviewed the footage from the detention room. Mara didn't escape alone, the guard who vanished. He didn't look forced. He walked out with her. Zayden frowned. So he's loyal to my father. Or bought by him, Coven said darkly. And there's more. One of the outer cameras caught them heading toward the old servants' cottages behind the property. Leora's pulse spiked. Why would she go there? Zayden's eyes hardened. Because she thinks someone there knows something. Coven nodded. Sir, many old staff used to live in those cottages. Some stayed even after retiring. One of them might remember details from 20 years ago. A silence passed. Then Zayden made his decision. We're going there, all of us. Leora stood abruptly. I'm coming too. No, Zayden said firmly. Yes. She stepped closer, her voice trembling but determined. Zayden, my mother died protecting the truth. If I hide now, I dishonor her. And besides, her eyes softened. You said we're in this together. Zayden's chest tightened. The words hit deeper than she realized. He nodded slowly. Stay next to me the entire time. Coven, take a full security team. Coven nodded and made a call. Within minutes, they were moving. The night outside was even darker than before. Thick clouds swallowed the moon, and the air smelled of rain still clinging to the earth. The path to the old cottages was narrow, lined with silent trees that swayed ominously in the wind. Zayden walked beside Leora, keeping her close. 4 guards followed at their backs. Coven led the way with his flashlight cutting through the shadows like a knife. The cottages appeared at last small, worn, their roofs sagging with age. Many shutters were broken. Vegetation climbed up the walls, as though nature had slowly reclaimed them. Leora hugged her arms. These used to be full of life, Zayden murmured. I remember running here as a boy. Servants laughing, fires burning, food cooking. His voice faded. But everything changed after that night. They approached the first cottage. Coven knocked. No answer. The second, empty. The third, abandoned. But the fourth cottage, a faint light flickered inside. Someone's home, Kovan whispered. Zayden stepped forward and knocked gently. Hello, it's Zayden Karoma. I need to speak with you. Silence, then a soft shuffling sound. The door cracked open, revealing an elderly woman with silver hair pulled into a bun. Her eyes widened when she saw Zayden. Little Zayden, she whispered, voice trembling. You look so much like her now. Zayden froze. You knew my mother. The woman nodded. I was one of her attendants. Zayden lowered his voice. We need your help. Please. The woman studied him, his face, his expression, Leora trembling behind him. After a moment, she stepped aside. Come inside quickly. It isn't safe to talk out here. They entered the small cottage. It smelled of herbs, old books, and faint lavender. The woman gestured for them to sit. My name is Nana Amari, she said softly. I've been expecting this day. Leora frowned. Expecting us? Nana Amari nodded slowly. When your mother fled, she told me there would come a time when the truth returned, seeking justice. Leora's breath caught. You knew my mother. I helped her deliver you, the woman whispered gently. And I helped her the night she ran. Leora's knees weakened. She grabbed the nearest chair, tears burning her eyes. Zayden leaned forward. We found records, photos, letters. But we don't have the full story. Please tell us everything. Nana Amari closed her eyes as if gathering decades of secrets. It began with Adrian. Leora's jaw clenched. He was already cruel back then. Nana Amari continued, but he hid it behind charm and wealth. Many couldn't see past his mask, but Marisa did, and so did Thalia. Zayden exchanged a look with Leora. Marisa and Thalia were close, Nana Amari said. Closer than sisters, they shared everything. But one night, the household changed. Adrian discovered something he wasn't meant to find. The pregnancy, Zayden murmured. Nana nodded. Yes, but not just Thalia's pregnancy. Marisa had a child too. A child she kept secret from Adrian. Leora's heart hammered. A second child. Nana's voice trembled. Marisa gave birth 2 months before Thalia. A baby girl. But Adrian forbade her from keeping the child. He didn't want a daughter. He wanted an heir. Zayden felt blood turn to ice. He forced her to give up the baby. No, Nana corrected. She refused. She hid the baby. Only Thalia and I knew. But Adrian suspected something. Leora clapped a hand over her mouth. And the night they ran, Nana nodded. Adrian discovered both babies, both secrets. 2 infants he had no control over, Thalia's child and Marisa's. She looked directly at Leora. You were one of those babies. Leora staggered back as if struck. Zayden froze completely. But the other child, Nana whispered. Marisa's child. Where is she? Zayden whispered, barely able to speak. Nana Amari's eyes glistened with tears. I don't know. Marisa hid her before she left. Gave her to someone she trusted. But the name, the location, she never told me. Leora swayed, her mind spinning. So I'm not the other child, no, Nana said gently. You are Thalia's daughter. But your mother and Marisa, they fled together to protect both children. Zayden felt the earth tilt beneath him. All these years, he whispered, I had a sister, and I never knew. Leora's throat tightened. And she's still out there. Yes, Nana said. But she is in grave danger. If Adrian finds her before you do. The woman didn't finish. She didn't need to. A sudden crash outside made all 3 jump. Zayden stood instantly. Coven signaled the guards to fan out. Another crash. Voices. Footsteps running. Then the door slammed open. Mara stood in the entrance, breathless, bruised eyes wild with victory. Looking for the other child. Are we? She sneered. Behind her, a shadow moved, then stepped into the light. Adrian Karoma. Leora's blood turned to ice. Zayden's breath stopped. And Adrian smiled. Good, he said softly. You've saved me the trouble of gathering you all. He glanced at Leora with cold satisfaction. And now, child, your part in this story ends tonight. For a moment, time shattered. The small cottage seemed to shrink around them, the thin walls unable to contain the terror that suddenly filled the room. Adrian Karoma stood at the doorway like a looming shadow, his eyes sharp and cold, radiating the same ruthless authority that had destroyed lives 20 years ago. Rain drummed faintly on the roof outside, soft, mocking, oblivious to the storm now raging inside. Leora felt every drop of blood drain from her face. Her knees weakened, and she clutched the back of her chair. Beside her, Zayden stepped instinctively between her and his father, his jaw tight, his stance protective. Mara. Zayden growled, "Get out." Mara smirked, wiping dried blood from her lip. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Not until Adrian finishes what he started." Nana Amari trembled, stepping back until her shoulder pressed against the wall. "Adrian," she whispered, "you shouldn't be here." "The truth is mine to decide," Adrian snapped. His gaze shifted to Leora, slow assessing dangerous. She felt exposed, like he could see straight through her skin, straight into every secret she wasn't ready to face. So Adrian said quietly, "This is the daughter Thalia risked everything to protect." Leora's breath hitched. His eyes narrowed. "Look at her, carrying my blood yet raised like a stray. How poetic." Zayden's voice cut sharply through the tension. "She is nothing like you." Adrian tilted his head. "No, she's far too weak." Leora flinched, but Zayden took another step forward, fury simmering beneath his skin. "If you touch her, you'll do what?" Adrian interrupted, amused. "Defy me, raise a hand against me." "You've always been predictable, son. You don't deserve that word," Zayden muttered. A flicker barely noticeable crossed Adrian's expression. Irritation, disappointment. It vanished quickly, replaced by an icy calm. He clasped his hands behind his back. "You found yourself tangled in matters far beyond your comprehension, girl," he said to Leora. "You should have stayed in whatever gutter Thalia crawled into." Leora felt nausea rise in her throat. Fear tried to choke her, but something hotter, sharper, cut through it. Anger. "My mother died protecting me," she whispered. "That makes her stronger than you'll ever be." Adrian's eyes sharpened. Mara jerked forward, fury blazing. "You little Zayden," barked, "don't touch her!" Coven and the guards surged into the cottage, weapons drawn, surrounding Adrian and Mara instantly. But Adrian simply raised his hand. Every guard froze. Leora stared. "Why are they—" Zayden inhaled sharply. "Father's men," he bribed some of them. Coven's jaw clenched. "Not mine. But the ones guarding the perimeter he must have infiltrated." Mara sneered. "Did you really think Adrian Karoma wouldn't prepare for this?" Adrian smirked. "I warned you, Zayden. This family is built on strength, not softness, not sentiment." His gaze flicked to Leora, and definitely not on bastards who threatened to unravel everything. Leora's heart cracked. Zayden reacted instantly, his voice deadly calm. "Say that again." Adrian's smile thinned. "I will say whatever truth I choose, boy." Zayden stepped forward, fists clenched, but Leora grabbed his wrist. "Zayden," she whispered, voice trembling but urgent. "Don't. He wants you angry. He wants you reckless." Zayden froze. Her fingers tightened just enough for him to feel the plea behind them. Adrian observed the interaction, his lips curling in distaste. Pathetic. He took a single step into the room. The guards tightened their hold on their weapons, but none moved, not until Zayden's command. Then Adrian spoke, each word sharp as a knife. "You want to know about the other child? Fine. Let's talk." Silence snapped tight around them. Leora's lips parted. Zayden stiffened. Adrian's gaze drifted to Nana Amari. "You've been a nuisance for far too long." Nana Amari stiffened, gripping the edge of a table to steady herself. "I swore to Marisa I would protect them." "I never should have allowed you to stay," Adrian muttered. "Loyalty like yours is admirable but inconvenient." Coven stepped partially in front of Nana Amari. "You will not touch her." Adrian ignored him. His focus returned to Zayden and Leora. "You want the story," Adrian said, voice dangerous in its calmness. "Then listen closely." He stepped deeper into the room, the guards parting reluctantly as he approached. 20 years ago, the Karoma legacy faced disaster. Marisa, your mother, was ill-suited for the duties required of her. She was emotional, too compassionate, and she hid things from me. Zayden's hands clenched. She hid from you because she feared you. Adrian didn't respond. Meanwhile, Adrian continued. Thalia grew bolder. She believed she had a claim to something greater. She dared to think the child she carried should be acknowledged, should be given a place in this family. Leora's breath quickened. "Because you were her father." Adrian's eyes flashed. Thalia was a mistake, nothing more. Leora's heart twisted in pain. Zayden moved closer to her, sensing her trembling. Adrian continued, voice dripping with venom. "She wanted power. She wanted recognition. and your mother Marisa was foolish enough to help her. Together they plotted to take everything from me. That's a lie, Leora cried. My mother didn't want anything except to keep me safe, Zayden added sharply. And Marisa protected Thalia because you were the danger, father, not her. Adrian's expression hardened. You know nothing. Across the room, Mara smirked. She was drinking in the chaos as though it fed her. Tell them, she purred. Tell them the part that really matters. Adrian inhaled deeply. The truth, he said coldly, is that Marisa gave birth to a daughter she kept hidden from me. A child who was never meant to exist. Zayden's pulse raced. My sister. Adrian's eyes flicked to him. A weakness Marisa tried to use against me. She thought raising a hidden heir would free her from my authority. Zayden shook his head. That's not who she was. But Adrian continued, voice rising with venom. And Thalia, that cunning woman, she decided she deserved the same. When she discovered Marisa's secret, she hid her own child, hoping to manipulate her way into this family. That's not true, Leora whispered, tears blurring her vision. She was trying to escape you. Adrian's jaw twitched. Just slightly. Thalia stole something from me, he said. So I took something from her. The room froze. Zayden took a sharp step forward. What did you do? Adrian didn't blink. I separated her from the infant. Leora's heart stopped. Zayden's voice cracked with fury. You! What? Adrian's voice remained icy. Thalia believed she escaped with her baby, but she didn't. The night she ran, she left with someone else's child. The room exploded into stunned silence. Zayden felt his world collapse. Leora's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees. Her voice broke. No, no. That can't. Adrian cut in ruthlessly. You're not Thalia's biological daughter, girl. Zayden's breath caught. Leora's entire body shook. That's not possible. She raised me. She loved me. But you're not the child she gave birth to that night, Adrian said calmly. She took the wrong baby. Zayden stared at his father, horrified. You're lying. Adrian shrugged. Believe what you want. But Thalia fled with Marisa's daughter, the hidden Karoma heir. The world tilted. Leora's heart pounded violently against her ribs. I'm Marisa's daughter, she whispered, voice barely audible. Adrian nodded once. And the other child, he added, the one you call Thalia's, is the one I've been searching for all these years. Zayden staggered back. Leora clutched her head, tears streaming uncontrollably. No, this can't be. But Adrian was not finished. You want the truth, he said coldly. Here it is. His eyes locked with Leora's. You are the rightful heir to the Karoma Empire. Silence detonated across the room like an explosion. Leora couldn't breathe. Zayden couldn't speak. Nana Amari collapsed into a chair sobbing. And Adrian took one final step toward Leora, expression sharp as a blade. Which means, he whispered, you're the threat I should have eliminated first. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Leora felt the world slip sideways. Her breaths came short and sharp as if her lungs refused to work. The shadows inside the cottage pressed tighter around her, choking, mocking. I'm the rightful heir. I'm Marisa's daughter. Then who? Who was I all these years? Adrian's gaze drilled into her, cold and triumphant, as though exposing her identity gave him renewed power. You understand now, he said softly, darkly, why I could never allow you to live freely, why your existence threatens everything I built. Zayden snapped. Existence isn't a crime, he roared, stepping in front of Leora so violently that even the guards flinched. You destroyed 2 innocent women, and now you want to destroy her too. No. Adrian's voice hardened. Step aside, Zayden. I will never step aside for you again. A dangerous silence settled. Then Adrian's eyes cooled to a terrifying stillness. So be it. He signaled subtly with 2 fingers. The 2 guards positioned near the door suddenly raised their weapons, not toward Adrian, not toward Mara, but toward Leora. Leora froze, her blood turning to ice. Zayden reacted instantly, dragging her behind him as Coven and the loyal guards lunged to disarm the traitors. Metal clashed, grunts filled the air and chairs toppled in the cramped cottage. Adrian barked. Mara dove for the table, grabbing a knife and lunging toward Leora. Leora shrieked, stumbling backward, but Nana Amari grabbed Mara's arm midair with surprising speed. You will not touch her, the old woman cried. Mara shoved her violently. Nana Amari flew backward, hitting the wall with a sickening crack before collapsing. Leora screamed. Rage flooded Zayden's eyes. You monster! He lunged at Mara, grabbing her wrist and twisting so hard she screamed and dropped the knife. It clattered across the floor. Mara snarled, her face twisted with hatred. She doesn't deserve that throne. She was raised in dirt. She is nothing. Leora's heart splintered, but Xaden caught Mara by the collar and slammed her against the wall. You're right, Xaden growled, voice quivering with fury. She was raised in poverty. She was raised without protection, without safety, without truth. He leaned closer, voice a razor, and she still became more than you ever will be. Mara spat blood at his shoe. Xaden stepped back and threw her to the floor. Coven and 2 loyal guards finally subdued the traitors, tying their hands as they groaned and struggled. But Adrian simply watched, his expression unreadable, as if all of this was beneath him. When the chaos dimmed, he spoke calmly. You think you've won, Xaden? He asked quietly. You've only delayed the inevitable. Xaden turned on him, chest heaving. This ends tonight. All of it. Adrian raised a brow. How, you have no proof? No documents? Only stories from frightened women and a confused girl clinging to an identity she barely understands. Leora found her voice weak, trembling, but real. I don't need your approval to exist, she whispered. And I don't need your permission to claim the truth. Adrian's gaze darkened. You are a child of chaos, born of betrayal, raised in filth. You do not deserve the Koroma name. Leora swallowed the lump in her throat, tears burning. Xaden stepped to her side, his expression a shield of steel. She deserves everything you robbed from her, he said. And I'm going to expose every lie you built this empire on. Adrian's lips curled. You think you can take me down? I know I can. Xaden replied, voice low. Because I'm not alone anymore. Leora looked at him, her chest tightening with something deeper than fear, hope. The one thing she thought she'd never feel in this mansion. Adrian's eyes flickered with the faintest sign of uncertainty. Coven stepped forward. Sir, whether you like it or not, we have enough to start a case. Enough to bring investigators. Enough to enough. Adrian thundered, his voice booming with decades of dominance. The cottage shook with the force of it, but no one bowed. No one flinched. Not anymore. Leora raised her chin, still trembling, still raw, but more determined than ever. You hurt my mother, she said, voice steadying. You hunted her. You hunted me. And you hunted your own daughter. Adrian stiffened. Yes, Leora whispered. I know. Even if you won't admit it, Maurice's daughter is out there somewhere terrified of you. Like I was. For the first time since he entered the cottage, Adrian's mask cracked just a fraction. Something flickered in his eyes. Shock, fear, regret. He quickly smothered it. You know nothing, maybe, Leora said. But the world will. Adrian's nostrils flared. Who will believe you? You have no family, no wealth. No, she has Me, Xaden interrupted. And me, Coven added. And me, Nana Amari croaked weakly from the corner. Xaden rushed to help her up. Leora knelt beside her, tears falling anew. Nana Amari cupped Leora's cheek. Child, your mother would be proud. Leora broke. She clung to the old woman's hands, sobbing quietly. Behind them, Adrian seethed. You think you can weaken me with sentiment? I will crush anyone who threatens the Koroma name. Xaden stood slowly, turning toward his father with a look that could shatter stone. You already did, he said. You crushed everyone except yourself. Adrian's jaw tightened. Xaden took Leora's hand and pulled her gently to her feet. We're leaving. You're not going anywhere, Adrian growled. But Xaden stepped closer, meeting his father eye to eye. Stop me. The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. For a long moment, Adrian did nothing. Then he stepped aside. Leora blinked. Why is he letting us go? Xaden tilted his head slightly, eyes still locked on his father. Because he's not done yet, Xaden whispered. And he thinks he can still win. Adrian's silence confirmed it. Coven led Mara and the traitor guards out first. Then Xaden guided Leora toward the door. Nana Amari limped beside them, refusing to stay behind. As they reached the threshold, Adrian spoke one last time. You can run. You can dig. You can rebel. His voice echoed through the cottage. But you will never find the other child. Not before I do. Leora froze. Xaden squeezed her hand. Ignore him. But she couldn't. Not when Adrian smiled the way he did, like the devil savoring a secret. Not when the wind howled outside, carrying the weight of destiny with it. As they stepped into the night, Leora whispered the question burning in her chest. What if he finds the other child first? Xaden looked at her, his expression solemn. Then he said quietly, we'll have to fight harder than we ever imagined. The storm outside rumbled ominously, and Leora understood. The real battle had only just begun. The storm outside had grown fiercer by the minute, wind howling like a wounded creature, as Zayden led Leora, Nana, Amari, Coven, and the guards across the darkened grounds back toward the mansion. Rain lashed against the earth, soaking their clothes, blurring their vision. But no one dared slow down, not when Adrian's words still echoed like poison in the air. You will never find the other child before I do. Leora's heart hammered with every step. Her mind was a whirlwind of truths and lies of a past she never knew and a future she didn't know how to face. She kept her hand locked in Zayden's as if letting go would make her fall apart. Zayden felt the same fear, different in shape, but just as sharp. The revelation that he had a hidden sister, that Leora was not Thalia's child but his mother's. The truth had hit him like a blow he hadn't yet recovered from. But none of it mattered more than keeping Leora alive. Lightning cracked overhead as they reached the mansion's back entrance, and Coven pushed the door open. Guards hurried them inside, ushering them through the corridor toward the safer east wing. Nana Amari was shivering violently, leaning heavily on Leora. Zayden stopped and knelt beside the old woman. Coven, prepare a room for Amma. Get blankets, hot water, a doctor on standby. Coven nodded and spoke into his radio. A moment later, guards rushed forward to escort Nana Amari away. Child, Nana whispered to Leora, clinging to her hand one last time. Find the other girl before he does, please. Leora nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. I will, Amma, I promise. When the old woman disappeared behind a door, Leora and Zayden continued toward Zayden's private office, a room secured by biometric locks and reinforced glass. The moment the door shut behind them, Leora's knees buckled. She collapsed into the nearest chair, burying her face in her hands. Zayden rushed to her side, kneeling beside her again. Leora, look at me. She shook her head. Leora. Slowly, she lifted her tear-streaked face. Her eyes held the kind of pain only someone who'd been shattered twice could carry. My whole life, she whispered, voice trembling, I believed I was Thalia's daughter. I believed the necklace, the stories, the sacrifices, they were meant for me. Her breath shuddered. But now I learn I wasn't even hers. That doesn't change what she was to you, Zayden said gently. She raised you. She loved you. She died for you. That makes you her daughter in every way that matters. But she lost her real child because of me, Leora choked out. She died without her baby because she chose to protect one that wasn't even hers. Stop! Zayden took her hands, holding them firmly. Thalia didn't choose the wrong child. She chose you. She chose to save a life regardless of blood. You were innocent. You were helpless. And she loved you. But Leora's voice cracked. But nothing, Zayden whispered. Love is not measured by blood. Love is measured by sacrifice. And Thalia gave everything for you. Leora's tears fell harder. And my mother, she whispered shakily. She had a daughter, your sister, taken from her. And I was the one she helped escape. Zayden's jaw tightened painfully. My mother didn't regret helping you. She wanted both of you safe. Leora stared at him, breath caught. Do you really believe that? He nodded once firmly. Yes. She closed her eyes as another sob escaped her. I don't even know who I am anymore. Zayden lifted her chin gently. Then let's find out. Together. Something inside her shifted, still broken, but no longer alone. Before she could respond, Coven burst into the room, breathless. Sir, urgent update. Zayden stood instantly, protective instincts flaring. What is it? Coven held out a tablet. Security cameras picked up movement near the north boundary. Someone crossed the fence. Leora tensed. Coven zoomed in. The grainy footage showed a figure running through the rain, small and slight, stumbling through mud, clutching something to their chest. A child. Leora's pulse spiked. That's a girl, she whispered. Zayden leaned closer. Zoom further. Coven enhanced the footage. The girl couldn't have been older than 7 or 8. Her clothing was torn. Her hair was plastered to her face. She kept looking over her shoulder in terror. Is she running from someone? Leora asked. Lightning illuminated the screen. Behind the small figure, another shadow appeared. Taller, faster, hunting. Leora gasped. Adrian's men. Zayden's blood turned to fire. Set a perimeter. Now. Coven shouted orders into his radio. Guards sprinted through the hallways. Another flash of lightning revealed the girl had reached the side garden, crying, stumbling, frantic. Then through the rain she stopped. She looked up at the camera, and though the resolution was low, Leora saw her eyes. Wide, terrified, and unmistakably familiar. Zayden, Leora whispered, trembling violently. She looks like... My mother, Zayden, finished, voice hollow. The room stood still. Coven swallowed hard. Sir, we ran a face match scan. The results aren't perfect due to the rain, but she shares features with your mother's side of the family. Leora's breath caught. It's her. Zayden stared at the screen, his heart pounding. My sister. The footage suddenly shook. The girl ducked as a shadow lunged from behind her. Move, Zayden roared. Coven sprinted toward the door. Team Alpha intercept. Now Zayden grabbed Leora's hand and pulled her with him. Stay behind me. Don't let go. They raced through the mansion down the hallway toward the back exit. The rain slapped them instantly as they burst into the storm. Guards ran in all directions, flashlights cutting through the darkness. There, a guard shouted. The girl lay on the ground struggling to crawl while a masked man grabbed her arm. Leora screamed, No! Zayden charged forward like a force of nature. Let her go, he bellowed. The masked man turned startled, but only for a second. He yanked the girl up and bolted. Coven and 2 guards sprinted after him. Zayden ran with him, rain pounding his face, breath burning in his lungs. Leora followed as fast as she could, ignoring the pain, ignoring the terror. The man reached the fence. He threw the girl over it. She screamed. Then he climbed after her, but Zayden reached him first. He grabbed the man's leg, yanking him backward with a roar. The man hit the ground hard. Coven tackled him instantly, pinning him down. Zayden ignored the struggle. He rushed to the fence. Leora reached it too, chest heaving. On the other side of the fence, the girl lay curled in the mud, crying, clutching a small cloth bundle to her chest. Zayden climbed the fence. Leora's voice shook. Zayden, be careful. He jumped down beside the girl. She flinched violently, trying to crawl away. Zayden gently raised his hands. Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. She shook her head rapidly, tears streaming. He's coming back. He said he'll take me to bad people. He said. Zayden knelt slowly. No one is taking you anywhere. Leora reached the top of the fence and dropped down beside them, ignoring the mud that splashed on her clothes. She crouched near the girl. Sweetheart, what's your name? The girl hiccuped, shaking. M. Morel. The name hit Leora like a punch. Zayden's breath caught. Morel, he whispered. What a beautiful name. The child looked at him through wet lashes. Mama said, if I ever got separated, I have to find people who would protect me. Leora felt her heartbeat stutter. Do you know who they are? Morel nodded timidly. She said, I have to find Zayden Karoma. Zayden's world stopped. Leora covered her mouth, trembling. Morel pulled the cloth bundle closer. Inside it was a necklace, an identical crescent pendant. Leora tearfully whispered, She's Marissa's daughter. She's the real missing child. Zayden swallowed, hard eyes burning with emotion. Morel looked up at them both. Please, she whispered, voice breaking, don't let him take me. Zayden pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were made of glass. I won't, he whispered. I swear to you, I won't ever let anyone hurt you. Leora knelt beside them, wrapping her arms around both. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. And for the first time in Zayden's life, he held the missing part of his soul. The storm raged on. But in the middle of it, a new family was forming, born from pain, bound by truth, forged in fire. And the war for justice had only just begun. Life does not always reveal the truth gently. Sometimes it arrives like a storm, loud, painful, and impossible to ignore. But truth, no matter how dark, gives us the power to break cycles of silence and reclaim what was stolen. Leora learned she was not defined by her past, her bloodline, or the lies forced upon her. Identity is built through courage, compassion, and the people who choose to stand with us when the world falls apart. Zayden learned that real strength is not inherited. It is earned by protecting the vulnerable, confronting injustice, and rewriting the legacy we choose to leave behind. If this story moved, you tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you love powerful African folktale dramas like this, feel free to subscribe for more. Your support means everything.